Hey guys, and welcome to or back to the Pause in Pursuit podcast with your host, Summer Clark. So today I'm going to be giving you 15 things I wish I knew as an agility newbie. So for this, we're talking a good 13 years ago. These are kind of some things that I wish someone had told me and I didn't have to work out for myself. But I have worked them out for myself, and I'm hoping that in this episode that will stop you having to learn them for yourself, because you'll be aware of them before you even begin or at the very start of your journey. So before we jump into it, obviously the usual start of the episode is the weekly recap. So I was meant to be teaching a workshop on Saturday, but it got rescheduled for August. So I did do that. So we had a really nice chill day instead. Then we went to Iconics on Sunday. Honestly, that day was the best me and Ara have ran together in a very long time, and some of my favourite runs ever, literally to date. Obviously, I already knew that Iconics courses are fire, and obviously that helped. The runs feel like my favourite runs ever, but honestly, we're just running together so well at the moment. It's finally all coming back into place. Both of our jumping runs, he just had a pole down, but the fastest time, story of our lives. The first one, it was the second to last pole, and it was a SERP, and I was in his way, in all fairness. The second one was just one of those things. I definitely wasn't in his way, but yeah, awesome runs. And then his agility run, obviously, I went in thinking about the seesaw. It was number 4 on the course, and he's normally slower and worse at the seesaws when they're that early on in the course. And it was probably the best seesaw he's ever given me. It was just so good. You need to go over to my social media and watch it if you haven't already watched the video. He then pinged the dog walk, but when I watched the video back, I did push for a very risky blind at the end of the dog walk, and I think I was just a split second too late. Got in his way, and he thought he had to jump it out of my way. But I made the blind, and he didn't run straight into the back of my knees, so happy days. I'm not broken from that, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying, even though I was slightly late for the blind, I got it, and I just love running like that, just absolutely going for it and seeing. I just want to see what I can do, what we can do, how fast I can run, how much I can leave him, stuff like that. It was actually tunnel, threadle wrap, so I did I cued his threadle wrap and just left, and then jumped dog walk. But I had a conversation with a few people after that run about the course, and a few people said their dogs pinged the dog walk, and they think it's because it was such a big run up to the dog walk. We don't normally have a jump dog walk straight line, because we just don't usually have the room. And that is actually true. We don't actually see that a lot in competition. So yeah, it seemed to be quite a common thing, but I still think my blind was slightly late, but the rest of the course was amazing. He actually had the exact same time as the winner, to the dot, in that run, even though I held him on his seesaw for a good 4 seconds. So, and that was our runs. He was literally foot perfect. It was just such a good day. Sun was shining, pub was open, happy days. But yeah, he's on fire. Our connection is absolutely back. And because they were such tricky courses and barely anyone actually got round them, we still managed to pick up 2 5th places, one in the jumping, one in the agility, which was fun. So we still got a pick on the podium. But yeah, just 6 weeks ago, I was feeling super demoralised, as you guys know, and as if we were starting right from scratch again. But now we're here, and this is truly the best I think we've ever ran together, including before I broke my foot, which sums it up really. Keep working hard, because it always pays off in the end, even though it feels like you're either going backwards or you're plateauing or you're never going to get there. It always does pay off in the end. So that was such an amazing day. I had such a good time at Iconics, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one already. But that was pretty much my week. Nothing else overly exciting has occurred. So without further ado, I'm thinking this will be a shorter solo episode today. We have 2 guests coming up over the next 2 weeks after today's episode, so look forward to those, but I'll tell you more about those at the end of this episode. But yeah, so let's get into my 15 things that I wish I knew as an agility newbie. Like I said, talking a good 13 years ago when I was 10, which is very, very young. So yeah, if anyone's ever comparing themselves to me, don't, because I've been in it for such a long time. I was a literal fetus when I was introduced to the sport, or when I found out about the sport and started. And I'm now 23, coming up 24. In fact, I'm 24 in less than 2 months, which is wild and very, very scary, because help me, I'm still a little girl internally. Not, that sounds weird. Mentally, shall I say? Mentally, emotionally. Anyway, let's get into the episode. So, number one thing that I wish I knew when I first started agility was that more training doesn't equal more progress. I bang on about this constantly, but less is more. More does not equal better results. In fact, balance actually equals better results and more progress. You do not have to and should not hammer yourself and your dog with training if you want to progress more, because it's going to have the opposite effect. I think when anyone starts at any new pursuit or sport or any new hobby or venture, we kind of want to throw everything we have into it and all of our time and everything and be doing it 24/7 because it's new and exciting. And that is kind of the stereotype, isn't it? Just put more time into something and it'll bring more progress. And that is true to an extent, but over time. Okay, not all in one go, all of the time. You know, if you consistently put in time to something, yes, you will get better and progress with time. But if you do it all in one go, really fast, really suddenly, it'll have the opposite effect. You'll burn out, you'll get injured, your dog will burn out or get injured. I am literally living proof of this. So yeah, that is the biggest thing that I wish I knew when I started agility, and it would have saved me a lot of upset, a lot of wasted time, and yeah, huge one to start off. Number two is that teaching equipment is actually the easy part. The correct mindset and fostering this is harder and takes longer to master. So actually teaching your dog the skills they need for agility is way easier, even though you probably think, oh, that is agility, that's the hard part of agility, like being a dog trainer and doing that. The actual hard part, which is so much harder, is getting yourself into the correct mindset for a sport, basically. And I suppose this isn't entirely relevant if you're not competing in agility, if you are just doing it for fun. But still, no, even then, I think mindset is important, because even when we're training or doing something for fun, you know, if we're in the wrong mindset, we still get frustrated. You know, when we're learning anything new, it's frustrating if it's not going our way or we feel like we're not making enough progress. That is just human nature, isn't it? Competition or not. So yeah, really just the equipment is the easier bit, even though it's still hard, obviously, and a challenge. Getting yourself into the correct mindset to learn a new skill, and not only that in yourself, but also to teach a dog, which often is out of your control. And, you know, as they say, don't work with children and animals, or whatever the saying is, because they have a mind of their own. You know, they're all different. You have to, you know, trial and error different approaches and methods and stuff like that. You know, it's difficult to get into the mindset that will, you know, keep you going at that and not getting frustrated and giving up, basically. And then obviously being in a positive enough mindset, like I said, to keep enjoying it and keep progressing and keep working at it without wanting to give up. Or you know, or putting your dog off if you're in a bad mindset in every session. You're never gonna get anywhere with that, are you? And, you know, fostering the mindset that you need to do well in the sport is actually harder than teaching your dog the equipment, in my opinion. Okay? That's not to put you off. That's just to remind you there is more to it than just teaching the equipment. And mindset is definitely... Oh, voice break there again. Mindset is definitely something that you should start thinking about while you're a newbie, I think. It took me a while to realise how important it is. So if you know that from the get-go, you will, again, waste less time and just have a nicer time, basically. Number 3 is that every dog is totally different and every partnership has a completely different timeline. Now, this is huge, okay? So all of our dogs are different and will pick things up at different rates. Different methods will work differently for different dogs. Like I said in the last point, everything is pretty much trial and error, especially when you're a newbie. And then every partnership has a different timeline. You know, you're the same. you learn at a different rate to other handlers. You know, your handling develops at different speeds, etc., etc. And comparing yourself to other, comparing your dog to other dogs that you see, maybe your friends' dogs or dogs you see on the internet or social media or YouTube or whatever doing agility, they're just nothing. There's no point. Like, your dog's nothing like that dog's nothing like your dog. Don't compare yourself and your dog to others, same as handlers. Don't compare yourself to other handlers, because I am awful for this and I always have been, but it's something I'm really trying to work on. There is no point, because we're all so different. We're all mentally built different. We're all physically built different. Our reaction times are completely different as far as how our brains work, stuff like that. So there really is no point in comparing yourself to other handlers or your dog to other dogs, because everything about you and your dog is different to others. Your needs are different, your learning's different, your brain, your body is different. Comparison is entirely unproductive. It will get you nowhere, and it is a waste of energy. You could be spending that energy, putting into yourself and your dog individually and getting better as a partnership. And just growing in that way instead of just wasting it, because it's a lot of energy. Comparing, getting down on yourself is a lot of energy that you just do not need to be spending on that, because it will get you nowhere. It's just a complete waste of time. If you find yourself doing it, just get in the habit of, going, Summer, I say to myself, Summer, you're doing it again, stop it. And you'll get into the habit of checking yourself and be like, oi, you're doing it again. And you'll notice it more, and being able to snap yourself out of it will become easier and more. It'll happen like that, if that makes sense. What's the word? It'll become more instant, more of a, instant reaction. There's another word for it, but you know what I'm saying. Point number 4 is that agility is very intense on both the dog and handler's body as well as brain, but especially body, and you should treat yourself and your dog like professional athletes. For example, physio, nutrition, recovery, etc. I think this is very easy for us to overlook when we start out in the sport. Those are the last things that we think of. Like I said, we just think about the actual dog training, teaching our dogs the equipment, the skills and stuff like that. But without this foundation of what an athlete needs, so like Arrow has his monthly physio appointments. I see a physio if and when, when needed, if I feel niggles or anything like that, just to keep me fit and in good shape to run. Nutrition as well, making sure your dog is on the correct diet that will, aid their performance in a sporting sense. Not just to keep them healthy in general, but also in a sporting sense. And then your own nutrition as well. This is something I have noticed a lot of handlers struggle with or don't think is as important as it is. But it's huge, making sure your own diet is nutritious and healthy, obviously balanced. I'm not saying be obsessive. Being obsessive is the last thing I think you should be about any of this, but just being aware that it's a factor and it will impact how you feel and how you perform in agility. And then recovery as well. So, your sleep, your rest, stuff like that. Same for your dog. So, I had my stress fracture, and I think leading up to that, and that was only last year. It took me years to realise how intense agility is on the body. Not just on the handler body, but also, not just on the dog's body, which you'd think would be the main thing, because it's the dog doing all the movements, but it's also very intense on the human body, okay? I know we kind of think, we go to a competition and we do 4 30-second bursts, that's only 2 minutes of exercise. Yeah, but it's very, very intense exercise. It's unnatural. The movements of agility are unnatural for both humans and dogs. So that will take its toll on the body if that, recovery and maintenance isn't kept up. So that is something that I think is very important. Also, obviously, at a show, you've got lots of course walking, lots of movement, and it takes it out of you. So yeah, just realising the intensity of agility as a sport and just making sure you're aware of that so that you can just keep yourself and your dog well. Point number 5, even when it feels like you're not making any progress, keep going and pushing, because hard work always pays off in the end, okay? This is a absolute huge one. This is so huge because, like I said with Iconics, you can literally feel like it's the end of the world, end of your career, like you've gone backwards. I thought that's it after those 6 months off. We're never going to get back to where we were, never mind make more progress, but we're better than we were before that happened. Okay, so even when it feels like you're not making progress or you're going back several steps, you've just got to keep working hard and keep pushing forward, because it will pay off in the end. You've just got to be really, really patient. And I know it's really, really hard, but you've just got to be patient, consistent, trust in the process, and just keep going and enjoy it. Enjoy the journey and just trust, it'll all pay off as long as you're enjoying the process. Don't fixate so much on the outcome. That's kind of another point within a point, is it's not all about the destination, is it? It's about the journey. It's not all about getting that one win at this certain event. It is about the stuff you do leading up to it, the work you put in behind the scenes to get there, and making sure that you are enjoying that as well as that eventual reward, because that eventual result doesn't always come, because, there's a lot that's out of our control in agility. Like for me at the weekend, poles, it just is what it is. Missed contacts, it is what it is, things happen. The performance of our competitors on the day, that will impact the result we get. There's a lot of it that's out of our control, that even if we, even with all the hard work that we're putting in, sometimes on the day it doesn't go our way. So that's why it's especially important to enjoy the process and the journey, because the result isn't guaranteed, but it at least gives you something to work towards. So even when it feels like it's all going tits up, keep going, okay? I'm the epitome of keep going. Right, number 6. Plateaus and dry spells are normal and all part of the journey. So this point kind of it kind of mixes in with the previous point, but having a plateau, not making progress, and having dry spells, maybe you're competing, you're like, bloody hell, I haven't had a clear round, or I haven't had a place in months. That's normal, and it's part of the journey, and you should see that these points in your journey as an opportunity to reevaluate your approach to training and competing, both the actual physical training you're doing and your mental approach as well, and find new ways to improve your performance. So maybe tweak your method a little bit. Again, I preach consistency. Give what you're doing a good old go, but then, if it's months and you're not seeing any results from it, you can obviously tweak your approach, try something new, mix it up and see if that works instead, and try and find that exciting, try and think, oh, it's an opportunity to try something new, keep it fresh as well. So you've got to, again, kind of reframe how you look at these things and just kind of think, you know what, this is a great opportunity to become a better trainer, handler, try a different approach, do some research, talk to other people, try something different. So yeah, it's normal to plateau, and it's an opportunity to, try something new and gain more experience doing something new, and it all makes you a better trainer and a better handler in the long run. Number 7 is that running contacts are not only faster than stopped contacts, but they're also much healthier for a dog's body. So when I first started agility with my first dog, Earl, no one had running contacts. It wasn't a thing. In fact, there wasn't even 2 on 2 off at the club I started at. You just lured them up, along and down with a treat, and that was it. Okay, no criteria. However, with Ethel, when I started with her, 2 on 2 off was a thing, but I didn't know about running contacts. So she had a 2 on 2 off, including on the A-frame. Now I cringe when I think about that, because a 6 kilogram dog stopping 2 on 2 off on an A-frame, think about the angle, is not good on the wrists. Coming down that slope slowly is not good on the dog's body, realistically. And then when you start competing, they're way slower than running contacts anyway, and especially in this day and age, just teach the running contacts from the get-go. You will be faster, and it's also so much better for a dog's body. Now, because when I was a newbie, agility was in a completely different place to where it is now, I don't even actually know if running contacts, like I said, were even a thing. I'm sure the bloody mat method wasn't. Who knows? Was it a thing 13 years ago? Someone let me know who's been around for that long doing agility, because I hadn't heard of it. But yeah, if you're starting now, it's very important to know. Well, again, each their own, and a lot of people train both as well, which I find very impressive. But in my opinion, I've learned that running contacts are not only faster, because you need them to be competitive, in my opinion, in this day and age. I suppose unless you get turns off of contacts, but we don't get tons of those. Touch wood. When we do, I'm like, oh, bollocks, I'm just going to have to scream right or left and hope for the best. But yeah, not only do we kind of need them to be competitive speed-wise, but they are a lot better on the dog's body because momentum carries them down and they're not doing that slowing down while they're coming down a slope. You know, have you ever tried to walk down a really steep hill without falling flat on your face? Doesn't it? Your muscles are on. Like, aches your legs a bit, doesn't it? Like, think about the dogs doing that, you know, on their front legs and wrists. Not great. Number 8, and this is kind of sticking with the contacts theme, a 4-on is in fact an option for teaching seesaw criteria to dogs, especially small dogs, like I said about Ethel, and it is also much healthier for their bodies than a 2-on, 2-off. So seesaw, 2-on, 2-off was, well, again, it was just lure your dog up to the end, and as soon as it bangs on the floor, they can go. Then I was introduced to the 2-on, 2-off, and I did not know about a 4-on for a very long time. It is only within the past couple of years that I've kind of seen the 4-on being taught and, you know, being used in competition. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. Especially, again, small dogs, because if you're thinking of them going into a 2-on, 2-off position on the end of a seesaw, that is a lot of, you know, force going through their body because 2 of their feet are on the floor, the back feet are then on the seesaw. And the seesaw, because they're so lightweight, is likely to bounce back up a bit, which puts them into a bit of that handstand position. Again, not great for their back because they might end up, you know, arching their back. Also, a lot of pressure through their wrists and just putting their body into a really weird, unnatural, uncomfortable alignment, which can't be good for them long term. So again, if you're a newbie at agility now, 4-on is a thing. And for small dogs, I would highly recommend it for the seesaw. Even Arrow, I should taught a 4-on, to be honest, because he's not a huge fan of the 2-on, 2-off. Although he did put himself straight into the 2-on, 2-off position at Iconics, which I can't remember the last time he did that in competition. I don't think he ever has, because as you know, as most of you probably know, he's always had an issue with his nerves around it. But yeah, I'm going off on a tangent bragging about my amazing spaniel now. But anyway, I'm sure you guys can understand. So yeah, 4-on is a thing. And I would highly recommend it if you have a small dog that is fairly lightweight, just for the health of their body on the seesaw again. Number 9, shaping is much more effective than luring when teaching new behaviour, in my opinion. Remember, all of this podcast is completely opinion-based. But in my opinion and experience, shaping works way better than luring because the dog has to figure it out on their own and get those cogs turning if you want sustainable learning to take place. So, you know, learning happens when the dog kind of goes, oh, I see, this is what I should do to earn the reward. Whereas if you're just luring, you know, I can't say that word very well, luring. If you're luring with food or a toy, in my opinion, I mean, some dogs might learn really quickly with luring, but in my opinion, for my dogs that I've taught things, that when I'm luring, all they're thinking about is the treat on the end of the nose. They're not thinking about what they're doing for that treat to be released. They're just thinking, oh, I'm chasing this treat around doing things and then I can get it. Like, in my opinion, my dogs are just way too focused on keeping their nose on that treat and getting it out of my fingers. They're not actually thinking about what they're doing. So when the treat's taken away, they're like, oh, what the hell do I do? I wasn't thinking about it. I was just thinking about the treat. Where's it gone? So I would start, oh, Jesus, I just choked. I would start out your agility journey teaching your dog these new skills with shaping, okay? And it's so satisfying and so rewarding to watch them figure that out, watch them have that little light bulb moment in their heads. It's great. And for me, that is the joy of dog training. So yeah, shaping, 100% the method to go with, in my opinion. Number 10. Foundation exercises aren't reserved only for complete beginners. Revisiting them, even when the final behaviour is complete, is hugely beneficial and something that you should even keep doing even when you're extremely advanced. And like I said, the behaviour in question is complete and your dog understands it. As an example, the mat for running contacts, your dog has a complete finished running dog walk, but there is absolutely no harm in returning to mat on the floor and mat on the plank, just to revisit it. Maybe you've noticed your dog's hits are getting a little bit higher. So, go back to the basics and reinforce that criteria. And then happy days, it just reinforces that in your dog's brain, reminds them of the criteria that got them to the final behaviour. Another example is channel weaves. So I've never used the the 2x2 method, so I can't talk about that. But channel method I used for Arrow to teach him the weaves. And going back to opening up the channels and working on the drive through really helps, especially with dogs that are less drivey through the full set of completely closed weaves. This is something I often will ask my online clients to have a go at, is reopening the channels and just working on that drive through them. Especially, like I said, if they get into competition and their dogs are struggling through the weaves, or, maybe popping out of one or just going slowly through them. Most of you, again, know Arrow's weaves. He would walk through them and pop out the 10th for a while in competition. So revert back to open channels and just work on that drive. And even now, if you notice your dog maybe slightly slowing down or anything like that, you can go back to the very start of that weave training with the channels open. It's not like you just do it when you first start and can never revisit it. Absolutely not. Revisiting foundations is hugely beneficial, and you can absolutely do that and should do that in a lot of circumstances. Number 11 is that the longer you spend on these foundations of a behaviour, the faster and easier the dog will learn the full behaviour. So, like with the mat for running contacts, the more time you spend and the more work you put in, really drilling in those foundations of the mat on the floor, like wing to mat to manners minder, stuff like that on cue, the quicker your dog will pick it up once that mat eventually goes on to the actual contact. Okay, I don't think I need to really go into that any much more. It is what it is. Like I said, get those foundations absolutely perfect, and then it will be so much easier when you advance the difficulty of that behaviour. And to be honest, I think that goes for pretty much any behaviour, any skill that you're teaching your dog, because all behaviours have foundations, don't they? So yeah, I think that is super important. Number 12. And this one sounds a bit woo-woo, but your crazy dreams within agility are totally achievable, but they won't happen overnight. So when I started, I had all these crazy dreams, and I thought, oh my God, that would be amazing, but I don't think it's possible, blah, blah, blah. And it was possible. The dreams I had when I started, I've achieved not all of them, but a lot of them. I'm not even going to say most of them, a lot of them. And you keep, coming up with more dreams, don't you? And you're always raising the bar and setting more goals and high goals for yourself, which is great. But yeah, it's absolutely, whatever you're sitting there thinking, oh my God, that must be so hard to achieve, I'll never do it, but I'd love to. It is absolutely achievable, but it will take a while, and it's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to take a lot of work. And just remember, I've been doing agility for 13 years. And, some of these dreams that I'm on about have only happened in the past few years, or, for example, Team GB I was introduced to agility in 2012, and my first year on Team GB was 2017, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That's a good 5 years. So these things don't happen overnight. And yes, I've been in the sport for 13 years, but there's still so much I want to achieve, okay? And so many dreams and goals that I have. And that's after 13 years of being in the sport, So even after what seems like a long time of doing the sport, not everything's achieved, far from it. So, you can do the things that you set out to do, but do not expect them to happen overnight or be quick fixes or anything, It's the long game. Think you're in it for the long game. There's no rush, and be patient and keep working, and they will happen eventually. But just don't expect that straight away. It takes, like anything, takes a lot of hard work. But like I said earlier, enjoy the process. Number 13, teaching equipment and skills comes second to building drive and focus. So you want that drive and focus and fun and just love for the sport in your dog before you obsess over teaching the actual equipment and the skills around the equipment. So the main thing is drive and focus. Like I said, that's what lacked when I started with Arrow, and it was hell. It was so hard and so demoralising, and it was awful to see him, lack that drive, focus and enjoyment for the sport, even though he could do the equipment or, to some extent and had some skills, you really want to make sure that you're getting that drive and focus instilled in your dog, before you think about teaching equipment and skills and all the sexy nitty-gritty stuff, okay? Again, full stop, don't need to say much more on that. Drive and focus comes first, always. It's huge. Number 14, again, a bit similar. Agility comes second to obedience. Now, I'm not talking like competitive obedience, heel worky stuff necessarily, although if you want to do that, that is amazing. And everything that you do with your dog will help, your dog learn to listen to you and build that relationship, which is actually my last point. But get your dog listening to you, get those basic behaviours installed that's got nothing to do with agility. Your basic recall, sit, down, wait, everything like that. Your watch me cue, your hand touch, your come to heel, stuff like that. It doesn't have to be fancy, just that basic obedience, just basic dog being well behaved kind of things. That needs to be there before, again, you start obsessing over the agility and, getting into the agility training. Your dog needs to have that foundation of good obedience first. Otherwise, you're just going to get behaviour problems in agility. Your dog's going to be running off to other rings, which we don't want. Your dog won't come back to you when called. Your dog just won't listen to you. So, it'll feel like a battle anyway, and you'll just get frustrated. So, yeah, obedience first, agility second, always. I kind of went straight into the agility mainly with Arrow because I was just so excited. But now I'm thinking, you know what? There's no need. There's just no need. Just get that obedience sorted. Get that, again, foundation of your dog just listening to you and learning things in place before you think about the agility equipment. Number 15, and the last point today, is the most important thing you can work on to up your agility game is not the equipment, agility related things like that. It's the actual relationship and connection between you and your dog. If you don't have that, you don't have any agility. You can't. It won't work. So you want to be building your relationship between you and your dog constantly and first and foremost. That is the most important thing to wrap up this entire episode. That is the most important thing. If you've got that, you can do anything, okay? Full stop. Boom. Huge one. And there's so much you can do to build that relationship. You can play with toys. You can teach fun little tricks that don't necessarily serve a purpose of a sport or anything like that. Just spending time with your dog, going on walks, going out with them, taking them places, stuff like that. Just having that really, really close bond and solid relationship with your dog is it. It is the foundation to not only success in sports if you choose to do them, but just having a great, fulfilled and enjoyable life with your dog in general. So those are my 15 points. I hope you found today's episode helpful. If you have any further questions about any of it, please do reach out. Give me a follow on social media at Paws in Pursuit or at Summer Clark. That's also where you can contact me. Like I said, my DMs are always open if you would like me to expand on any of the points today or just any questions you have for me in general. Please do also make sure you're following the podcast because I actually have 2 really exciting guest episodes coming up. Next week, we're going to have Marianne Bayliss on the podcast and we're going to be talking about the junior to senior transition, which I think a lot of my listeners will relate to and find really useful, whether that's something you're going through currently or it's coming up in the next few years. And then the week after that, we've got Ashley Butler coming on the podcast and we're going to be talking about her journey from winning Britain's Got Talent all those years ago to now representing Agility Team GB with her dogs. So yeah, make sure you're following the podcast so you don't miss those. And that is kind of part of my what's coming up next for summer. That is happening. I've got those 2 recordings within the next week, so super excited for those. I can't wait to have the conversations and I'm sure you will enjoy listening to them as much as I do having them. Also, if you're feeling generous, please do leave the podcast a 5-star rating or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That would mean the absolute world to me because let's be honest, guys, I'm giving you all this information for absolute free every Wednesday. And I've had so much good feedback on the podcast from you guys, which is amazing. Thank you so much. But yeah, if you're feeling generous today, please do leave that rating and review. And yeah, please do keep sending in your podcast episode topic recommendations. No requests. Yeah, requests that you have. So what would you like me to talk about in future solo podcast episodes? What guests would you like me to have on in the future? And what would you like us to talk about specifically? All those things, please do keep sending them my way. And I think that's everything. I also do offer online coaching services. So if you would like help setting some agility goals, or if you've got agility goals that you'd like to achieve and you'd like some help achieving them, or if you're having a training issue or a competing issue or anything agility related issue, I think I would be able to help. And if not, that is fine. But you know what? Let's have a chat anyway, and we'll see if we are the right fit for each other. So please do fill out the online coaching inquiry form. You can find the link for that in the description of this podcast episode. And I would love to help you guys out. It is, what's the word? You're not committing yourself to anything by filling out the form. It's purely so that we can have a chat and just see if it's right for you. And if I could help, which I hope I can, I would love to do so. What else have I got coming up? I have a workshop on Sunday, unless that one gets rearranged as well, although I don't think it will. And again, business as usual, other than that, to be honest. So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I hope you guys have a great week. The weather is absolutely stunning right now. I'm actually going to get this podcast episode up and scheduled for tomorrow because it's Tuesday while I'm recording this. So, a whole day and a half in advance this week, not leaving it till last minute like I did last week. So yeah, I'm going to go out and sunbathe after I've done that because it's gorgeous out there. And I also need to get used to being absolutely sweltering because Portugal, got to acclimatise myself. But yeah, I will let you guys go. Have a great rest of your Wednesday and week. And I will speak to you next Wednesday at 8 p.m. on the dot. As always, bye guys.